Good afternoon, Star people, and welcome to the 8th flight test of Starship. It's currently 5:01 p.m. Central Time here in Starbase, Texas, and we're looking forward to tonight's launch of the world's most powerful rocket. Great view there of the vehicle on the pad. I'm Kate Tice, Senior Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX.
And I'm Dan Hewitt with SpaceX Communications. Welcome to our second ever broadcast from Starbase's new Star Factory building. First, if you don't count Monday. But we are at T-minus 28 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting down to a liftoff at the open of our window at 5:30 p.m. Central Time today.
3 days ago, we stood down from a launch attempt after triggering a few holds during the count, which had us hold at T-minus 40 seconds for several minutes, resume the count, and then trigger another automated hold. The final item that ended the day was when we encountered lower than acceptable pressure on the ground spin start system for 2 of the outer engines on the Super Heavy booster. All Raptor engines use high pressure gas to start up, and we use gas stored on the ground side to start up the 20 outer engines on Super Heavy. By the time this automated hold appeared and the team started to work through it, we also triggered a hold on the booster LOX levels and had to call it for the day.
We were able to trace the spin system issue to just a misconfig on some of the ground hardware, so that had a really straightforward fix. We just took the time, though, to look into some of the other items that resulted in holds throughout the count, including some of our automation was triggering holds on the booster, which we were able to actually clear during that launch attempt by confirming the hardware was healthy, and we had some manual commanding backups. We also looked at some pop-up hardware and software issues on the ship, and just to put us in the best possible spot for a launch today, we destacked Starship, did some repairs inside a ship, and then ran some additional checkouts.
And that brings us to today, just about a month and a half after our last flight, which saw the second ever tower catch of the Super Heavy booster, and the first flight of our upgraded ship, which unfortunately ended much sooner than we had hoped. It's important to remember that in development programs like this, progress is not always linear, and there is no comparison to putting flight hardware in a flight environment to learn as fast as possible. We always want to be in the best possible position to achieve our mission objectives, which is why we stood down from launch on our previous attempt and took the time over the last few days to get ready for launch.
Now, the objectives for today's flight going to look very similar to Flight 7. As always, primary payload for these flight tests is data. We are planning to deploy some simulated Starlink satellites and fly a range of experiments focused on reentry. We removed a whole bunch of tiles again from the ship for reentry testing and looking to really stress test it.
We'll also be intentionally stressing the flaps during reentry so we can test the limits of ship before we get ready to attempt future ship catches. So there is a lot of new testing happening today, and as always, excitement is guaranteed.
Now, just a real quick status check. So you could tell we're loading prop onto the vehicle. We're able to get through our prop load, go, no go, just about 40 minutes ago. And we are loading liquid oxygen, liquid methane on both vehicles, not tracking any vehicle problems, issues on either booster or ship. Weather is green right now. Winds at the pad are actually significantly lower than they are even just for us over here at the Star Factory. Just a couple mile difference makes a big change in those wind speeds. And range is currently projected to be go, but we are always watching any boats that are out there in the ascent and the entry. Now, let's take a couple of minutes to meet today's vehicle. Sitting there on the pad, it's the world's biggest rocket, Starship.
Starship consists of 2 stages, the ship, which has 6 Raptor engines, and the Super Heavy booster, which has 33 Raptor engines. Both stages are fully reusable. Super Heavy is the most powerful rocket ever flown and is designed to launch, return, and refuel, and launch again with 0 refurb between flights.
And then everything else you see around Starship, we refer to as Stage 0. That includes the towers. We've got our second launch tower stacked on the left side of your screen there, getting ready to come online later this year. It also applies to orbital launch mounts, our quick disconnect systems, everything on board. Also the water-cooled flame deflector, which is right underneath Starship. That's a particularly cool piece of engineering. It uses several 100,000 gallons of potable water to offset the pretty intense heat pressure coming out of those 33 Raptor engines at the bottom of the Super Heavy booster at the time of liftoff.
Now, you mentioned engines. Of the 6 Raptor engines on the ship, 3 of those are optimized for sea level performance and the other 3 for vacuum. Raptor Vacuum, or RVAC, well, those have a larger exhaust section and expansion nozzle to maximize efficiency in space as there's no atmosphere up there. The ship as a whole is designed for vertical takeoff and landing on any hard surface.
The ship itself has 4 flaps that are used to control its attitude and enable precision landing during subsonic flight. And then for full reusability, the ship has to survive reentry not just once, but multiple times. It does that by using that heat shield, which is composed of those thousands of hexagonal ceramic tiles, which can insulate the vehicle during reentry, temperatures spiking up to about 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit in some spots. And a rapidly reusable heat shield has never been flown on any vehicle in history. So continuously improving the one we have, Starship, is still a key focus of our flight test campaign.
And of course, in between our first and second stages is our hot stage. Hot staging is when the second stage engines ignite while still attached to the first stage. There you can actually see a video of our previous hot staging maneuver, or executed on a previous flight, and how the ship's engines light while it's still ignited while the booster's engines are still firing. Basically, the rocket never stops accelerating, which makes it more efficient than traditional stage separation.
And then after we launch the booster, we also have to catch the booster. And we do that by using the two robotic arms, the same ones that lift Starship onto Super Heavy before we launch. They also catch the booster when it returns. It means we don't have to have any landing legs in the booster. That's a lighter booster. It means we can put more payload, more stuff going to space.
Thousands of criteria must be met before the booster can return and be caught. It requires a healthy systems and manual commanding from the flight director.
And just like on our previous flights, if that command's not sent before the end of the boost back burn, or if those automated health checks running in the background find any unacceptable conditions on the booster or the tower, they'll kick us out, and the booster can default to a landing burn and a soft splashdown out there in the Gulf.
Yeah, we've said it before. We'll say it again because it still holds true today. We accept no compromises when it comes to ensuring the safety of the public and our team, and the booster return will only take place if those thousands of conditions are right. So as the clock continues to tick down to launch, let's say hello to Chris, who's once again posted up in Hawthorne. How's it going, Chris?
Buenas, nos volvemos a encontrar con otro lanzamiento espacial. En esta ocasión con el tan esperado octavo test de vuelo de la Starship. El jueves 6 de marzo de 2025, el cielo sobre Boca Chica, Texas, se llenó de tensión y expectativa. La octava prueba de vuelo de Starship, la nave espacial más poderosa jamás construida, estaba programada para despegar a las 5:30 de la tarde, hora central de Estados Unidos, desde la base Starbase de SpaceX. El mundo observaba, con cámaras listas y corazones acelerados, mientras la cuenta regresiva avanzaba bajo un clima favorable. Aproximadamente 30 minutos antes del lanzamiento, la transmisión en vivo comenzó en x@SpaceX. Mostrando al coloso de 403 pies, 123 metros, erguido sobre su plataforma, listo para desafiar la gravedad una vez más. Tras la explosión del séptimo vuelo en enero, que dejó escombros esparcidos sobre las islas Turks y Caicos y desató una investigación federal, SpaceX había implementado mejoras significativas. La etapa superior de Starship, rediseñada con flaps delanteros más resistentes al calor, un sistema de propulsión con un 25% más de capacidad y una aviónica renovada, prometía superar los límites alcanzados previamente. El plan era ambicioso: seguir una trayectoria suborbital, desplegar 4 simuladores Starlink, reencender un motor Raptor en el espacio y realizar experimentos de reentrada para intentar devolver la etapa superior al sitio de lanzamiento. Mientras tanto, el cohete Super Heavy debía regresar y ser capturado por los brazos mecánicos de la torre Mechacilla, una maniobra que SpaceX ya había logrado en el pasado. A las 5:30 de la tarde CT, tras una cuenta regresiva impecable, con el director de vuelo dando el visto bueno y los Raptors rugiendo al unísono, Starship despegó con un estruendo que sacudió la Tierra. Las publicaciones en X de @SpaceX. Capturaron el momento. Starship's Raptor engines ignite during hot staging separation. Super Heavy is boosting back towards the launch site. El Super Heavy se separó con éxito y comenzó su retorno, aterrizando de nuevo en la plataforma en una demostración de precisión. Pero la euforia duró poco. Aproximadamente 8 minutos después del despegue, las cosas se torcieron. La transmisión en vivo mostró a la etapa superior girando descontroladamente en el espacio, un eco inquietante del fallo de enero. Según reportes de Reuters y NBC News, SpaceX perdió contacto con la nave poco después, y el vehículo sufrió lo que la compañía describió en X como una Rapid and Scheduled Disassembly, un eufemismo para una explosión catastrófica. Vídeos compartidos en X mostraron restos ardientes cayendo del cielo, visibles desde lugares tan lejanos como Cape Cañaveral, Florida, mientras la FAA intervenía nuevamente, deteniendo vuelos en aeropuertos importantes por precaución ante posibles escombros. En una publicación posterior en X, SpaceX escribió: During Starship's descent burn, the vehicle experienced a rapid and scheduled disassembly and contact was lost. Our team immediately began coordination with safety officials to implement pre-planned contingency responses. La compañía prometió revisar los datos para identificar la causa raíz, pero el revés marcó el segundo fallo consecutivo en una fase que SpaceX había dominado en pruebas anteriores, según TechCrunch y Bloomberg. Esto representa un golpe significativo para el programa que Elon Musk ha acelerado este año, con miras a misiones lunares y marcianas. A pesar del fracaso, el vuelo no careció de logros. El retorno exitoso del Super Heavy demostró avances en la reutilización del cohete, y los experimentos planeados, como las pruebas de baldosas metálicas con enfriamiento activo y sensores de radar en la torre, pudieron haber recopilado datos valiosos antes del desenlace. Sin embargo, el objetivo de desplegar los simuladores Starlink y completar la reentrada quedó fuera de alcance. El eco de las explosiones sónicas resonó en Texas, un recordatorio audible de los riesgos inherentes a estas pruebas. Para SpaceX, cada fallo es una lección. Como dijo la compañía en X antes del lanzamiento, With Flight 8, we refocused on finding the real world limits of Starship. Aunque el cohete no alcanzó las estrellas esta vez, la misión reafirma su filosofía: poner el hardware a prueba en condiciones reales para acelerar el camino hacia un futuro reusable. Mientras el polvo se asienta en Boca Chica y los ingenieros analizan los restos, el mundo espera el próximo capítulo de esta odisea cósmica. 1 hora 15 minutos, el director de vuelo de SpaceX realiza una encuesta y verifica la carga de combustible del Go. Este instante, 75 minutos antes del despegue, es el pistoletazo de salida operativa. El director de vuelo, figura central en la coordinación, realiza una encuesta o POI con los equipos de ingeniería, revisando sistemas como propulsión, aviónica y seguridad. El go para la carga de combustible no es solo una formalidad, implica que los tanques están presurizados, las válvulas funcionan, y no hay anomalías en el cohete ni en la torre de lanzamiento. Para un vehículo como Starship, que combina LOX, oxígeno líquido a menos 183 grados, y metano líquido, a menos 161 grados, este paso es delicado. Cualquier fuga o mal funcionamiento podría detener la cuenta atrás, como ha pasado en pruebas anteriores. En el contexto del Flight 8, este momento reflejó la confianza tras las mejoras post-séptimo vuelo. Según SpaceX, el rediseño de la aviónica y el aumento del 25% en el volumen de propulsor requerían un sistema de carga más robusto. La decisión de avanzar aquí marcó un tono optimista, pero también expuso al equipo a la presión de un cronograma dinámico. Si bien no hay indicios de problemas en este punto, la posterior explosión sugiere que la atención debió estar en cada detalle, incluso en esta etapa temprana. 2 minutos y 40 segundos, puesta en escena en caliente, ignición de Starship Raptor y separación de etapas. A 2 minutos y 40 segundos del despegue, la puesta en escena en caliente, hot staging, es un hito técnico audaz y distintivo de Starship. A diferencia de cohetes tradicionales que apagan todos los motores antes de separar etapas, aquí los Raptors de la etapa superior se encienden mientras el Super Heavy aún está activo, justo después del MECO, 2 minutos y 32 segundos. Esto reduce el tiempo muerto en el ascenso y maximiza la eficiencia, pero introduce riesgos. La ignición debe ser precisa para evitar vibraciones o daños estructurales en la separación, que ocurre 5 segundos después del inicio de la quema de retorno del refuerzo, 2 minutos y 45 segundos. En el Flight 8, este paso fue un éxito visible. SpaceX tuiteó, Starship's Raptor engine ignite during hot staging separation, y el Super Heavy se alejó limpiamente para su retorno. El diseño mejorado de los flaps y las teselas protectoras probablemente ayudó a soportar las fuerzas térmicas y dinámicas de este momento. Sin embargo, este éxito inicial contrastó con el fallo posterior. La puesta en escena en caliente exige una sincronización perfecta entre los sistemas de propulsión y control. Cualquier desajuste sutil aquí pudo haber plantado la semilla del giro descontrolado que llevó a la Rapid and Scheduled Disassembly minutos después. Analizar los datos de este evento será clave para entender si el problema nació en la transición. 8 minutos y 44 segundos, corte del motor de la nave espacial. El apagado de los motores de la etapa superior, 8 minutos y 44 segundos tras el despegue, debía marcar el inicio de su fase orbital. Aquí, Starship alcanzó su trayectoria suborbital, lista para desplegar los simuladores Starlink, 17 minutos y 24 segundos, y reencender un Raptor, 37 minutos y 28 segundos. Este corte es crítico. Los motores Raptor, optimizados para el vacío con un empuje de 230 toneladas cada uno, deben apagarse en secuencia para estabilizar la nave. Un fallo en la orientación o en el sistema de propulsión podría desequilibrarla, especialmente con las mejoras recientes que aumentaron el volumen de propelente y la complejidad de la aviónica. En el Flight 8, este fue el último momento de normalidad. Poco después, la transmisión mostró a Starship girando sin control, y SpaceX confirmó la pérdida de contacto tras una explosión. La cronología planeada, reentrada a 47 minutos y 22 segundos, aterrizaje a 1 hora 6 minutos y 26 segundos, se desvaneció. ¿Qué falló? Las hipótesis podrían incluir una fuga de propelente no detectada, un error en la nueva aviónica redundante, o un fallo estructural en los flaps rediseñados bajo tensiones inesperadas. La investigación, como SpaceX anunció en X, analizará estos datos, pero este punto marcó el límite entre el éxito parcial y el desastre total. El contraste con el aterrizaje impecable del Super Heavy a 6 minutos y 57 segundos subraya que el problema fue exclusivo de la etapa superior. Conclusión del análisis. Estos 3 eventos encapsulan la complejidad de la misión. El go a 1 hora 15 minutos mostró preparación, la puesta en escena en caliente a 2 minutos y 40 segundos, ejecución impecable, y el corte a 8 minutos y 44 segundos, el borde del fracaso. El Flight 8 fue una prueba de extremos, el Super Heavy brilló, pero la etapa superior expuso vulnerabilidades. Cada segundo de esta secuencia, desde la carga hasta la explosión, ofrece a SpaceX una mina de datos para refinar un cohete que sigue siendo, incluso en sus fallos, un paso hacia el futuro espacial. Ahora continuemos con el lanzamiento SpaceX y el octavo test de vuelo de la Starship.
T-8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Way with that final.
Booster engine pressure on them.
All right, we're a little over 40 seconds into the flight. We are
Booster
seeing
shift,
33
power,
out of
telemetry nominal.
33 Raptor engines ignited. Boosters pushing us downrange over the Gulf. Next milestone coming up in just under 10 seconds is going to be max Q, that max aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
All right, so we're through max Q. That's the heaviest stresses it's kind of seeing on the way up. Wow, that was pretty incredible.
I'm still recovering. That was amazing. Beautiful views of the vehicle on ascent, pitching downrange away from the launch tower.
Next thing coming up is hot staging. So we're going to look for 6 engines to ignite on ship while we're still attached to the top of the booster. We'll see all but those 3 center engines shut down on booster.
We're hearing the initial call that we are go for booster catch back here at the launch tower. Coming up now on hot staging, the ship's engines will ignite while still attached to the Super Heavy booster, and also while Super Heavy booster will still be under power itself. The clamps holding the 2 stages together are going to release, and Starship second stage engines will
Booster engine
ignite.
cut off. Ship engine startup. Stage separation. Boost back burn startup.
There we go. Ship engines, all 6 Raptors ignited. We're doing that boost back burn. Looks like we got 11 of the 13 that we command for that, so that's going to start sending the booster back. We are still go for booster return, even with 2 Raptors out during that boost back. We can do a full duration one. But looks like we got a ship, 6 engines heading into space, and then we got a booster hopefully on our way back to Starbase. How's everything going in Hawthorne, Chris?
Everything is looking good. The crowd eagerly followed that ascent and now watching the booster coming back. So as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen here, that is ship continuing. And that's a great view of ship continuing on its way to space there. Looking, that's inside the camera, inside the aft skirt, looking at the Raptor vacuum and the sea level engines. The sea level ones there in the center of your screen under our T+ clock. You can see our boost back burn. We're down to 3 engines on the boost back burn. And you can see ship on the right-hand side of that telemetry with 6 engines lit, continuing its ascent to orbit, already over 100 kilometers in altitude. The booster 87 kilometers in altitude and continuing its trek right now back to the landing site and catch site. There's a shutdown. And we just heard a good call out for boost back shutdown. The next thing we should see on our screen is the separation of the hot stage from the Super Heavy booster. We jettisoned that because we do not need it for the landing, but on future iterations of the Super Heavy, that hot stage ring will be incorporated into the booster and we will get it back. But for today, you can see it on the right-hand side of your screen there, just separating off from the right-hand side of the booster. You can also see the booster doing its liquid oxygen dump there, which is exactly what we would expect for it to do as the booster gets itself configured for the landing here. Now, meanwhile, Starship will continue to coast after it reaches orbit for about 40 minutes or so, up to an altitude of 214 kilometers, but it's still got a ways to go there, currently accelerating past 7,500 kilometers per hour there in velocity. And just look at those great views of the booster coming back. The Gulf coastline there just looks absolutely gorgeous.
Starship is on a nominal trajectory.
And there we hear nominal trajectories all around. And Dan and Kate, we're at 5 minutes, 15 seconds here into the flight. Everything looking good for the Super Heavy and for Starship today. What's it like there at Starbase as we get ready to catch?
It was incredible, Chris, to be able to see the mock diamonds with my own eyes. That was amazing. We are standing by for return of booster back to the launch tower. We have heard that we are go for the catch of the booster.
Yeah, this coming from one of our long-range tracking cameras. We're able to see the hot stage separate and fly away. So coming up in just about 30 seconds, we're going to look for the landing burn. We're going to command those 13 inner and middle ring engines to turn on. 13 initially. They bleed off all of that velocity as we're slowing down from supersonic speeds, eventually moding down to only 3 engines for that precision flight into the tower.
Right now, booster using its 4 hypersonic grid fins to help guide itself through this atmospheric entry back for its precision landing at the launch site. Once again, we're going to ignite first the center 13 engines. We should see that coming up here momentarily.
Engines in startup.
this is going to come down to 3 engines as the booster slows down for its landing. And we just heard the sonic boom. What an incredible sight to see the super heavy booster gliding down into the chopstick arms once again.
Stuck the landing.
Wow. That will never get old.
All right. We saw 12 out of 13 light for that landing burn. Booster still able to make its way with that final precision burn on the 3 engines in for the tower catch, so booster caught. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on ship. Still got 6 Raptors burning. Those are going to continue for about another minute until we'll get to the Starship engine cutoff. Really cool view. Again, a million shout outs to all of our avionics team who make these cameras possible for us. That's looking right down inside essentially the skirt area of ship, where you can see a pretty good view of all 6 Raptors, especially those 3 inner ones, one of which we're going to hopefully relight a little bit later. And we just saw some engines go out. It looks like we are losing attitude control of the ship.
Ship FTS is saved.
So we're still getting video down from the ship. You can see we've lost several engines and we've lost attitude control of the vehicle. So we'll continue to stick with it.
For those of you that just recently joined us, we had a successful liftoff of the 8th test flight of Starship, followed by a successful stage separation. We saw the booster, actually, you can see it just behind us here. The booster had a successful catch back at the tower. Unfortunately, it seems as though we lost the attitude control of the ship. We are standing by as we listen in with the teams on the nets to understand what information we're able to provide you. We will provide that as soon as we are able, but it's pretty incredible to take a moment and see the booster just behind us. Certainly a different view than last time.
And at this point, we've essentially lost contact with the ship. We're no longer receiving telemetry at this moment. So we were only about 20 seconds away or so from the end of that ship ascent burn. We saw several of the engines start to cut out. Once you lose enough of those center engines, you're going to lose attitude control. And so we did see the ship start to go into a spin. And at this point, we have lost contact with the ship. So we're going to listen in for a little bit. I think it's pretty obvious we're not going to continue the rest of the mission today, but just give us a couple more minutes. We'll bring you more information as it comes in.
Hasta acá el lanzamiento de SpaceX y el octavo test de prueba de la Starship. Si bien queda comprobado que SpaceX ya controla a la perfección el atrapar la primera etapa, dejas muchas más dudas que certeza la segunda etapa con esta nueva versión V2 de la SHIP. Si llegaste hasta acá, espero que te haya gustado el lanzamiento. Dale like y compartí con tus amigos y familiares, así somos más en esta linda comunidad espacial. Nos volvemos a ver en el próximo lanzamiento.